Hello, chat. Hello, everyone. Hi, welcome to today's stream. I'm gonna be really real with you guys for a second. Man, I'm a little still under the weather. But hi, Slem. Hi, Komi. Hi, Shima. Hello, everyone. I see there's a hydrate from Erie. Hello, chat. How are you guys doing today? The job market is insane, literally. God, most of the time you look at job markets and they're completely and utterly in shambles. Absolutely in shambles, chat. Okay, so today we're actually going to be doing something a little bit different than the last two streams. I know the last two streams have been mostly art from me and kind of like fixing around and experimenting with all sorts of styles, but I actually was gifted a game by my friend Dan, actually. And you probably have heard this game before because he doesn't. Well, here I'll show you in a sec. Hold on. Yeah, 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 yeah. Dan gave you this. Of course he did. Bird brain. Actually, hold on. If I do, actually, hold on a brief moment. Yeah, I was also weirded out by the. Where is it? Hold on. Oh, do I have to go into the menu? Oh, that's weird. Okay. Can I do this? Settings. Okay, yeah, there we go. Thank you for the praise, Zero. I appreciate it. Okay, back to ducks. Okay. So what should we do today? There's the Hippospace, download, Quacking the Ice, Infinity Cool most of the time. That's what everyone seems to do. And then there's actually a new one. Rooftop 1%. You know what? Let's do Hippospace. The duck, yeah, whatever. But we're gonna be sitting and... Dear Lord. What have I found myself into? Interesting. Okay. A little loud. Okay, hold on. Let me... Well... Scoot that down. Is that better? A little less loud? Because I can't hear what you guys hear. This is an interesting map, actually, like, locate. What? Huh? How do you play this game? Well, apparently there's a robot, I guess, that you can kind of... I don't know, am I able to control? Hold on. Hold on a second. There's a username. That... Oh god. Oh. Wait. Wait. Is he part of it? Okay, cool. Oh, okay. Interesting. What is he doing out here? Oh. Dude, God, there's so much happening already. Another duck. Okay, that, yeah, so there's a button. Well, I had a plan in mind, but now I'm kind of curious of what these controls do real quick, especially the username. Oh, weird. Well, this is cool. But as we are currently, basically, as we are playing this game today, I thought it'd be kind of cool to read you guys some classical literature. Um, Currently, I've been kind of reading a bunch of, like, old things. I actually went to the library recently and got some old books. And one book in particular, it's a short story. I like it a lot. It's called A Yellow Wallpaper. I have no clue if anyone of you have any, like, interest or any, like, have heard of the story before, but it's, like, about 74 pages. And it was written in the 1800s by a woman. Who is singing? I guess we have singing now. Okay. What kind of book is it? It's a short story. So it's by Charlotte Perkins Stetton. It is a short... I would argue somewhat... It is a horror story. Not in... Okay, this music has to be turned down, or else I'm gonna lose it. But the book is... the short story is essentially, TLDR, a woman losing sanity. So I'll just begin reading it. Actually, it says 72 pages, but this is only 10 because it's a PDF, so... It is a very seldom... hold on, It is very seldom that mere ordinary people like John and myself secure ancestral halls for the summer. A colonial mansion, a hereditary estate, I would say a haunted house, and reach the height of romantic felicity, but that would be asking too much of fate. Still, I would proudly declare that there is something queer about it. Wait, hold on, duck. Oh. Interesting. I also see this duck showed up at some point. Else why should it be let so cheaply? And why have stood so long unattended? John laughs at me, of course, but one expects that in a marriage. John is a practical in the extreme. He has no patience with faith, an intense horror of superstition, and he scoffs openly at any talk of things not to be felt and seen and put down in figures. John is a physician, and perhaps, I would not say it is it to a living soul, of course, but there is a dead paper and a great relief to my mind. Perhaps that is one reason I do not get well faster. You see, he does not believe I am sick. And what can one do? If a physician of high standing and one's own husband assures friends and relatives that there is really nothing the matter with one but temporary nervous depression, a slight hysterical tendency, what is one to do? My brother is also a physician and also a high standing, and he says that is the same thing. So I take phosphates and phosphates, whatever it is, and tonics and journeys and air and exercise, and absolutely forbidden to work until I am well again. Personally, I disagree with their ideas. Personally, I believe that congenial work with excitement and change would do me good. But what is one to do? I did write for a while in spite of them, but it does exhaust me for a good deal, having to be so sly about it, or else meeting with heavy opposition. I sometimes fancy that in my condition, if I have less opposition and more society and stimulus, but John says that the very worst thing I can do is to think about my condition, and I confess it always makes me feel bad. So I let it alone and talk about the house, the most beautiful place. It is quite alone, standing well back from the road, quite 3 miles from the village. It makes me think of English places that you read about, where there are hedges and walls and gates that lock, and lots of separate little houses for the gardeners and the people. There's a delicious garden. I never saw such a garden. Large and shady, full of box-bordered paths and lined with long, grape-covered arbors with seats under them. There were greenhouses too, but they were all broken now. There was some legal trouble, I believe, something about the heirs and co-heirs, something. Anyhow, the place has been empty for years. That spoils my ghostliness, I'm afraid, but I don't care. There is something strange about the house. I can feel it. I even said so to John one moonlight evening, but he said that I felt was a draught and shut the window. I get unreasonably angry with John sometimes. I'm sure I never used to be so sensitive. I think it's due to this nervous condition. But John says I feel so. I shall neglect proper self-control. So I take the pains to control myself, before him at least, and that makes me very tired. I don't like our room one bit. I wanted one downstairs that opened to the, that opened to the porch and had roses all over the window and such pretty old-fashioned chenilles hangings, but John would not hear it. He said there was only one window and not room for 2 beds, and no near room for him. He took another. He is very careful and loving, and hardly lets me stir without special direction. I have a scheduled prescription for each hour in the day. He takes all care from me, and I feel basely ungrateful not to value it more. He said we came here solely on my account, that I was to have the perfect rest and all the air I could get. Your exercise depends on your strength, my dear, he said, and your food somewhat on your appetite, but air you can absorb all the time. So we took the nursery at the top of the house. It is a big airy room, the whole floor nearly, with windows that look all ways, and air and sunshine galore. It was a nursery first, and then a playroom, and then a gymnasium, I should judge, for the windows are barred for little children, and there are rings and things in the walls. The paint and paper looks as if a boys' school had used it. It is stripped off, the paper, in great patches all around the head of my bed, about as far as I can reach, and in great place on other side of the room low down. I never saw a worse paper in my life. One of those sprawling, flamboyant patterns committing every artistic sin. It is dull enough to confuse the eye and following, pronounced enough to constantly irritate and provoke study. And when you follow the lame, uncertain curves for a little distance, they suddenly commit suicide, plunged off the outrageous angles, destroy themselves in unheard contradictions. The color is repellent, almost revolting, a smoldering, unclear yellow, strangely faded by the slow turning sunlight. It is a dull yet lucrated orange in some places, a sickly sulfur tint in others. No wonder the children hated it. I should hate it myself if I had to live in this room long. There comes John, and I must put this away. He hates to have me write a word. So, chat. As we read the first section of the yellow wallpaper, what are some of your first assumptions about the writer? Obviously, this is a woman who is currently under some sort of condition, and she is currently writing and hiding from her husband. Blinks. I love this. It's okay if you like. I'm gonna keep reading. There's much more to read. But I wanted to take a pause because that's where the author takes a pause, because that's where this writer, the character, this unnamed woman, takes a pause as her husband comes to the room. I do not know. I came in on the last paragraph. That's fine. The last paragraph literally is talking about how gross the yellow wallpaper essentially is in this what used to be a nursery that she has now been locked into. We have been here for 2 weeks, and I haven't felt like writing before since the first day. I'm sitting by the window now, up in this atrocious nursery, and there's nothing to hinder my writing as much as I please, save lack of strength. John is away all day, and even some nights when his cases are serious. I'm glad my case is not serious, but these nervous troubles are dreadfully depressing. John does not know how much I really suffer. He knows there is no reason to suffer, and that satisfies him. Oh my god, I always hate when I, like, lose my place. Of course, it is only nervousness. It does weigh on me, so not to do my duty in any way. I meant to be such a help to John, such a real rest and comfort, and here I am in comparative burden already. Nobody would believe what an effort it is to do what little I am able, to dress and entertain and order things. It is fortunate Mary is so good with the baby, such a dear baby, and yet I cannot be with him, and it makes me nervous. I suppose John never was nervous in his life. He laughs at me about this wallpaper. At first, he meant to repaper the room, but afterwards he said that I was letting it get the better of me, and that nothing was worse for a nervous patient than to give away to such fancies. He said that after the wallpaper was changed, it would be heavy bedstead, and then the barred windows, and then that gate at the head of the stairs, and so on. You know this place is doing you good, he said. And really, dear, I don't care to renovate the house just for a 3 months rental. Then do let us go downstairs, I said. There are such pretty rooms there. Then he took me in his arms and called me a blessed little goose, and said he would go down a cellar if I wished, and have it whitewashed into a bargain. But he is right. But he is right enough about the beds and the windows and things. It is airy and comfortable room as anyone need wish, and of course I would not be so silly to make him uncomfortable for just a whim. I'm really getting quite fond of the big room, all but that horrid paper. Out of one window, I can see the garden, those mysterious deep-shaded arbors, and the righteous old-fashioned flowers and bushes and gnarly trees. Out of another, I get a lovely view of the bay and a little private wharf belonging to the estate. There is a beautiful shaded lane that runs down from the house. I always fancy I see people walking in their numerous paths and arbors, but John has cautioned me not to give away to fancy in the least. He says that with my imaginative power and habit of story-making, a nervous weakness like mine is sure to lead to all manner of excited fancies, and that I ought to use my will and good sense to check the tendencies. So I try. I think sometimes that if I were only well enough to write, a little it would relieve the press of ideas and rest me, but I find I get pretty tired when I try. It is so discouraging not to have any advice in my companionship about my work. When I get really well, John says he will ask Cousin Henry and Julia down for a long visit, but he says he would as he soon would put fireworks in my pillowcase, as it let me have those stimulating people about. I wish I could get well faster, but I must not think about that. This paper looks to me as if it knew what a vicious influence it had. There's a recurrent spot where there are patterned lulls, like a broken neck and two bulbous eyes stare at you from upside down. I get positively angry with the impertinence of it and the everlastingness. Up and down and sideways, they crawl, and those absurd, unblinking eyes are everywhere. There is one place where two breaths didn't match, and the eyes go all up and down the line, one a little higher than the other. I never saw so much expression in an inanimate thing before, and we all know how much of an expression they have. I used to lie awake as a child and get more entertainment and terror out of the blank walls and plain furniture than most children found in a toy store. I remember when a kindly wink the knobs. I remember what a kind. Hold on, sorry. I remember what a kindly wink the knobs of our big old bureau used to have, and there was one chair that always seemed like a strong friend. I used to feel that if any of the other things looked too fierce, I could always hop into that chair and be safe. The furniture in this room is no worse than the inharmonious, however, we had to bring it all downstairs. I suppose when this was used as a playroom, they had to take the nursery things out, and no wonder. I never saw such ravages as the children have made here. The wallpaper, as I said before, is torn off in spots, and it sticketh closest than a brother. They must have persevered as well as hatred. Then the floor is scratched and gouged and splintered, and the plaster itself is dug out here and there, and there's a great heavy bed, which is all what we found in the room. Looks as if it had been through wars. But I don't mind it one bit, only the paper. Then comes Dawn's sister. Such a dear girl as she is, and careful of me. I must not let her find me writing. She is a perfect and enthusiastic housekeeper and hopes for no better profession. I verily believe she thinks it is the writing which makes me sick. But I can write when she is out and see her a long way off of these windows. There is one that commands the road, a lovely shaded winding road, and one that just looks off to the country. A lovely country too, full of great elms and velvet meadows. This wallpaper has a kind of sub-pattern in the different shade. A particularly, I have to turn the page. Irritating one, for you can only a particularly irritating one, for you can only see it in certain lights, and not clearly then. But in the places where it isn't faded, and where the sun is just so, I can see a strange, provoking, formless sort of figure, and it seems to skulk about behind that silly and conspicuous front design. Their sisters on the stairs. That's where the writer ends. That portion. I want to see what you guys are saying. Wait, why am I back in History and Madness class for real? Potentially. It said something about a nervous condition, which in an old book I read meant anxiety. Yeah, actually. Yeah, you guys are getting pretty close. I'll definitely continue texting while I read. Yeah, I'm literally texting while I'm reading, guys. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, but yeah, no, and then like I'm gonna analyze this book at the end, by the way. I hope you guys know that. So don't worry. But Alexa, very good call, especially about the nervous condition. Her husband is a physician and she has a nervous condition. So I'd like you guys to keep kind of note of that as I continue reading. Love these ducks. Yeah, look at this guy. It's Archie 1. Archie 2. Archie 3 that's in hell right now. Archie 4. Archie 5. Archie 6. Archie 7. Archie 8. What? Huh? How do we... Okay, chat, we'll have to figure out how to get that guy out in a second. Okay, I'm finding a different duck that is a little away from the music. You know what, we'll deal with, Archie in hell, I guess. Is he actually the husband, or is she a psych patient, her husband, and all of that is made up? Let's find out. Ooh, I love the music with this. Well, the 4th of July is over, and the people are all gone, and I am tired out. John thought it might be good for me to see a little company, so we just had Mother and Nellie and the children down for the week. Of course, I didn't do a thing. Jenny sees to everything now. But it tired me all the same. John says if I don't pick up faster, he shall send me to the Weir Mitchell in the fall. But I don't want to go there. At all. I had a friend who was there. I had a friend who was in his hands once, and she says he is just like John and my brother, only more so. Besides, it is such an undertaking to go so far. I don't feel as if it is worthwhile to turn my hand over for anything, and I'm getting dreadfully fretful and querulous. I cry at nothing, and I cry most of the time. Of course, I don't when John is here, or anybody else, but when I am alone. And I am alone a good deal just now. John is kept in town very often by serious cases, and Jenny is good and lets me alone when I want her to. So I walk a little in the garden or down the lovely lane, sit on the porch under the roses, and lie down up here a good deal. I'm getting really fond of this room in spite of the wallpaper, perhaps because of the wallpaper. It dwells in my mind so. I lie here I lie here on this great immovable bed. It is nailed down, I believe, and follow the pattern about by at the hour. It is good at gymnastics, I assure you. I start, we'll say, at the bottom, down in the corner over where it has oh my god, you know you're reading old text when you don't know what this word is. When it has not been touched. When it has not been touched, and I determine for the 1000th time that I will follow follow that pointless pattern to some sort of conclusion. I know a little of the principle of the design, and I know this thing was not arranged in any laws of radiation, or alternation, or repetition, or symmetry, or anything else that I've heard of. It is repeated, of course, by the breaths and not otherwise. Look at it in the other breath stands alone, and the bloated curves and the flourishes, a kind of debased Romanesque with delirium tremens, go waddling up and down in isolated columns of fatuity. But on the other hand, they connect diagonally, and the sprawling outlines run off in great slanting waves of optic horror, like a wallowing seaweeds in full chase. The whole thing goes horizontally, too. At least it seems so, and I exhaust myself in trying to distinguish the order of it going in that direction. I'm scrolling in on the duck. They have used a horizontal breadth for a phrase, and that adds wonderfully to the confusion. There is one end of the room where it is almost intact, and there, when the cross lights fade and the low sun shines directly upon it, I can fancy radiation after all, and the interminable grotesque seems to yeah, I love old I love reading old stuff because they have so many old words. I could almost fancy the radiation after all. An interminable grotesque seemed to form around a common center and rush off the headlong plunges of equal distraction. Stop rummaging through my fridge, goddamn. It makes me tired to follow it. I will take a nap, I guess. That's where the writer ends there, too. Talking about how she is not allowed to really walk out without supervision, and that her husband is currently out about, and that her husband has threatened to make her see another man of some sort. You want a coffee? Okay, keep digging. You have to keep digging. But every time you find something, you have to put that in your coffee. Okay, next section. I don't know why I should write this. I don't want to. I don't feel able. And I know John would think it tonics and things and say nothing of ale and wine and rare meat. Dear John, he loves me dearly and hates to have me sick. I tried to have a real, earnest, reasonable talk with him the other day and tell him how I wish he would let me go and visit to Cousin Henry and Julia, but he said I wasn't able to go, nor able to stand it after I got there, and I did not make out a very good case for myself, for I was crying before I had finished. It is getting to be a great effort for me to think straight. Just this nervous weakness, I suppose. And dear John gathered me up in his arms and just carried me upstairs and laid me on the bed and sat by me and read to me till it tired my head. He said I was his darling and his comfort. Oh, wait. Whoa. Wow. Hold on. Sorry. He said I was his darling, his comfort. Whoa. Where did it go? Wait. Yeah, there it is. He said I was his darling, and his comfort and all he had, and that I must take care of myself for his sake and keep well. He says no one but myself can help me out of it, and I must use my will and self-control and not let any silly fancies run away with me. There's one comfort. The baby is well and happy and does not have to occupy this nursery with a horrid wallpaper. If we had not used it, that blessed child would have. What a fortunate escape. Why I wouldn't have a child of mine, an impressionable little thing, live in a room of this world. I never thought of it before, but it's lucky that John kept me here after all. I can stand it so much easier than the baby, you see. Of course, I never mentioned it to them. Anymore, I am too wise. But I keep watch of it all the same. There are things in the paper that nobody knows but me, or ever will. Behind the outside pattern, the dim shapes get clearer every day. It is always the same shape, only very numerous. It is like a woman stooping down and creeping about behind the pattern. I don't like it a bit. I wonder, I begin to think, I wish John would take me away from here. That's where she finishes off another section. Her husband is actually her assigned person in the psych ward, but she's showing too much connection to him, and she's becoming troublesome so that other person would be more secure in the room. This is my guess. Interesting theory. It's definitely, yeah. In the beginning of the story, has a condition of some sort. However, John, whoever John is to her, she is referring to him as her husband at this point. Why is there's a little game up here, I guess. No, don't break your sewing machine. No! But yeah, so she has some sort of condition, and John is treating her in some capacity. However, John is treating her in a particular way, by placing her and locking her in this room with the yellow wallpaper. And as we get to the end of the last section that I read, I like pointing out it is like a woman stooping down and creeping about behind the pattern. I don't like it a bit. I wonder. I begin to think I wish John would take me away from here. The pattern is starting to kind of take its own shape. It is so hard to talk to John about my case because he is so wise and because he loves me so. But I tried it last night. It was a moonlight. The moon shines in all around just as the sun does. I hate to see it sometimes. It creeps so slowly and always comes in one window or another. John was asleep and I hated waking him, so I kept still and watched the moonlight as the undulating wallpaper till I felt creepy. The faint figure behind seemed to shake the pattern, just as if she wanted to get out. I got up softly and went to feel and see if the wallpaper did move, and when I came back, John was awake. "What is it, little girl?" he said. "Don't go walking about like that, you'll get cold." I thought it was a good time to talk, so I told him that I was really not gaining here, and that I wish he would take me away. "Why, darling," said he, "our lease will be up in 3 weeks, and I can't see how to leave before. The repairs are not done at the home, and I cannot possibly leave town just now. Of course, if you were in any danger, I could and would. But you really are better, dear. Whether you can see it or not, I am a doctor, dear, and I know. You are gaining flesh and color, your appetite is better, I feel really much easier about you." "I don't weigh a bit more," said I, "nor as much, and my appetite may be better in the evening when you're here, but it's worse in the morning when you're away." "Bless her little heart," said he with a big hug. "She shall be sick as she pleases. But now let's improve the shining hours by going to sleep, and talk about it in the morning." "And you won't go away?" I asked gloomingly. "Why, how can I, dear? It is only 3 weeks more, and then we will take a nice little trip in a few days while Jenny is getting the house ready. Really, dear, you are better." "Better in body, perhaps," I began, and stopped shortly, for he sat up straight and looked at me with such a stern, reproachful look that I could not say another word. "My darling," said he, "I beg of you, for the sake of our for our child's sake, as well as your own, that you will never for one instant let that idea enter your mind. There is nothing so dangerous, so fascinating to a temperament like yours. It is a false and foolish fancy. Can you not trust me as a physician when I tell you so?" So, of course, I said no, more on the score, and we went to sleep before long. He thought I was asleep first, but I wasn't, and laying there for hours trying to decide that the front that front pattern and the back pattern really did move together or separately. On a pattern like this by daylight, there's a lack of sequence, a defiance of law that is constant irritant to a normal mind. The color is hideous enough and unreliable enough and infuriating enough, but the pattern is torturing. You think you must have mastered it, but just as you get underway in following, it turns a back somersault, and there you are. It slaps you in the face, knocks you down, and tramples upon you. It is like a bad dream. An outside pattern is a florid, a florid reminding of fungus. Oh wait, hold on. It's another sentence that is like old. The outside pattern is a florid, a florid and. Jeez, what is this sentence? Hold on. There he is. The outside pattern is florid and reminds me of fungus. If you can imagine a toadstool in joints, and an empirical string of toadstools budding and sprouting in endless convulsions, why, that is something like that. That is, sometimes. There's one marked peculiarity about the paper, a thing nobody seems to notice but myself, and that is that it changes as the light changes. When the sun shoots in through the east window, I always watch for the first long, straight ray. It changes so quickly that I never can quite believe it. That is why I watch it always. I have to do that. By moonlight, the moon shines in the night when there is the moon. I wouldn't know if it was the same paper. At night, in any kind of light, and twilight, candlelight, lamplight, and the worst of all, moonlight, it becomes bars. The outside pattern, I mean, and the woman behind it, and as plain as I can see. I didn't realize for a long time what that thing was that showed behind the dim sub-pattern, and now I'm quite sure it is a woman. By daylight, she is subdued, quiet. I fancy it is the pattern that keeps her so still. It is so puzzling. It keeps me quiet by the hour. I lie down ever so much. John says it is good for me, and to sleep all I can. Turning the page. Oh, turned it way too much. Indeed, he started the habit of making me lie down for an hour after each meal. It is a very bad habit, I am convinced, for you see, I don't sleep, and that cultivates deceit, for I don't tell that I'm awake. Oh, no. And the fact that I'm getting a little afraid of John. He seems very queer sometimes, and even Jenny has some inexplicable look. It strikes me occasionally just as scientific hypothesis, and perhaps it is the paper. I have watched John when he did not know I was looking and come into the room suddenly on the more innocent excuses that I've caught him several times looking at the paper. And Jenny, too. I caught Jenny with her hand on it once. She didn't know I was in the room, and when I asked her in a quiet and very quiet voice, with the most restrained manner possible, what she was doing with the paper, she turned around as if she had been caught stealing, and looked quite angry, asked me why I frightened her so. Then she said that the paper stained everything it touched, and she found yellow smooches all over my clothes and John's, and she wishes we would be more careful. Did not that sound innocent? But I know she was studying that pattern, and I was determined that nobody shall find it out by myself. Life is very much more exciting now than it used to be. You see, I have something more to expect, to look forward to watch. I really do eat better, and I'm more quiet than I was. John is so pleased to see me improve. He laughed a little the other day and said I seemed to be flourishing in spite of my wallpaper. I turned it off with a laugh. I had no intention of telling him it was because of the wallpaper. He would make fun of me. He might even want to take me away. I don't want to leave now until I have found it out. There's a week more, and I think that will be enough. Thank you for the praise, Queen. I'm now lost in the book. I have so many different ideas on what things they may be. Yeah. There's a reason why this is one of my favorite short stories. Oh, hello. I'm feeling ever so much better. I don't sleep much at night, for it is too interesting to watch the developments, but I sleep a good deal in the daytime. In the daytime, it is tiresome and perplexing. There are always new shoots on the fungus and new shades of the yellow all over it. I cannot keep count of them, though I've tried consciously. It is the strangest yellow, that wallpaper. It makes me think of all the yellow things I've ever saw, not beautiful ones like buttercups, but old, foul, bad, yellow things. But there is something else about the paper, the smell. I noticed it the moment we came into the room, but with so much air and sun it was not bad. Now we have a week of fog and rain, and whether the windows are open or not, the smell is here. It creeps all over the house. I find it hovering in the dining room, skulking in the parlor, hiding in the hall, lying in wait for me on the stairs. It gets into my hair. Even when I go to a ride, if I turn my head suddenly and surprise it, there's that smell. Such a peculiar odor, too. I have spent hours trying to analyze. Sorry, I got a notification and my brain went bit. Such a pure odor, too. I have spent hours in trying to analyze it and to find what it smelled like. It is not bad. At first, a very gentle and quite subtlest, most enduring odor I have ever met. In the damp weather, it is awful. I wake up in the night and find it hanging over me. It used to disturb me at first. I love whenever, a duck is found. Oh, wow. Hello, sir. This camera just goes out in the middle. Okay. But now I'm used to it. The only thing I can think of that is that color of the paper. A yellow smell. There's a very funny mark on the wall low down near a mopboard. A streak that runs round the room. It goes behind every piece of furniture, except that the bed, a long straight even smooch, as if it had been rubbed off over and over. Oh, hi. I didn't know you did that. Okay. I wonder how it was done, and who did it, and what they did it for. Round and round, round and round and round, it made me dizzy. That is also another ending of another chapter, another entry. We go into the next entry. I really have discovered something at last. They're watching so many at night when it changes, and I finally found out the front powder does move. And no wonder, the woman behind it shakes it. Sometimes I think there are a great many women behind it, and sometimes only one, and she crawls around fast, and her crawling shakes it all over. Then in the very bright spots, she keeps still. And in the very shady spots, she just takes hold of the bars and shakes them hard. And she is all the time trying to climb through, but nobody can climb through that pattern. It strangles so. I think that is why there are so many heads. They get through, and then the pattern strangles them off and turns them upside down and makes her eyes white. If those heads were covered or taken off, it would not be half so bad. That ends another entry. I think that the woman gets out in the daytime. And I tell you why, privately. I've seen her. I can see her out in every one of my windows. It is the same woman, I know, for she's always creeping, and most women do not creep by daylight. I see her in the long shaded lane, creeping up and down. I see her in those dark grape arbors, creeping up and all around the garden. I see her on the long road. Never felt so life. Zero gravity? Oh. Yeah, I guess. Okay. I see her in the long road under the trees, creeping along, and when a carriage comes, she hides under the blackberry vines. I don't blame her a bit. It must be very humiliating to be caught creeping by daylight. I always lock the door when I creep by daylight. I can't do it at night, for I know John would suspect something at once. And John is so queer now, and I don't want to irritate him. I wish he would take another room. Besides, I don't want anybody to get that woman out at night but myself. I often wonder if I could see her out of all the windows at once. But turn as fast as I can only see out of one at a time. And though I've always see her, she may be able to creep faster than I can turn. I have watched her sometimes away off in the open country, creeping as fast as a cloud shadow in the high wind. That ends another entry. If only the top pattern could be gotten off from the under one. I mean to try it little by little. I have found out another funny thing, but I shan't tell it this time. It does not do to trust people too much. There are only 2 more days to get this paper off, and I believe John is beginning to notice. I don't like the look in his eyes, and I heard him ask Jenny a lot of professional questions about me. She has a very good report to give. She said I slept a good deal in the daytime. John knows I don't sleep very well at night, for all I am so quiet. He asked me all sorts of questions too, and pretended to be very loving and kind, as if I couldn't see through him. Still, I don't wonder he acts so, sleeping under the paper for 3 months. It only interests me, but I feel sure John and Jenny are secretly affected by it. That ends another entry. I'm gonna find another deck so we're not close to the good vibe music of this. Yeah, you can tell this was written in the 1800s because this word is hurrah! 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 This is the last day, but it is enough. John to stay in the town overnight and won't be out until this evening. Jenny wanted to sleep with me. The sly thing, but I told her I should be undoubtedly rest better for a night all alone. That was clever, for really I wasn't alone a bit. As soon as it was moonlight, that poor thing began to crawl and shake the pattern. I got up and ran to help her. I pulled and she shook. I shook and she pulled, and before morning we had peeled off yards of that paper. A strip of about as high as my head and half around the room. And then when the sun came and that awful pattern began to laugh at me, I declared I would finish it today. We go away tomorrow, and I'm flipping the page. They are moving all the furniture down again to leave things as they were before. Jenny looked at the wall in amazement, but I told her merrily that I did it out of pure spite at the vicious thing. She laughed and said it wouldn't mind doing it herself, but I must not get tired. How she betrayed herself that time. But I am here, and no person touches this paper but me, not alive. She tried to get me out of the room. It is too patent. But I said it was so quiet and so empty and clean now that I believe I would lie down again, sleep all I could, and not to wake me up even before dinner. I would call when I woke. So now she is gone, and the servants are gone, and the things are gone, and there is nothing left but the great bedstead nailed down with the canvas mattress we found on it. We shall sleep downstairs tonight, and take the boathouse tomorrow. I quite enjoy the room now it is bare again. How those children did tear about here. The bedstead is fairly gnawed, but I must get to work. I have locked the door and thrown the key down to the front path. I don't want to get out. I don't want to have anybody come in till John comes. I want to astonish him. I've got a rope up here that even Jenny did not find. If the woman does get out and tries to get away, I can tie her. But I forgot I could not reach far without anything to stand on. This bed will not move. I tried to lift and push it until I was lame, and then I got so angry I bit off a little piece of the corner, but it hurt my teeth. Then I peeled off all the paper I could reach on this floor. It sticks horribly, and the pattern just enjoys it. All the strangled heads and bulbous eyes and waddling fungus growths just shriek in derision. I am getting angry enough to do something desperate. To jump out of the window would be admirable exercise, but the bars are too strong to even try. Besides, I wouldn't do it. Of course not. I know well enough that a step like that is improper and might be misconstrued. I don't like to look out the windows even. There are so many of those creeping women, and they creep so fast. I wonder if they all come out of the wallpaper as I did. But I am securely fastened now by my well-hidden rope. You don't get me out of the road there. But I am securely fastened now by my well-hidden rope. You don't get me out of the road there. I suppose I shall have to get back behind the pattern when it comes night, and that is hard. It is so pleasant to be outside in this great room and creep around as I please. I don't want to go outside. I won't even if Jenny asks me to. For outside, you have to creep on the ground and everything is green instead of yellow. But here I can creep smoothly on the floor and my shoulder just fits in the long smooch around the wall, so I cannot lose my way. Why, there's John at the door. It is no use, young man. You cannot open it. How he does call and pound. Now he's crying for an axe. It would be a shame to break down that beautiful door. John, dear, said I in the gentlest tone. The key is down by the front steps under the plantain leaf. That silenced him for a few moments. Then he said, very quietly, "Open the door, my darling." "I can't," said I. "The key is down by the front door under the plantain leaf." And then I said it again several times, very gently and slowly, and said it so often that he had to go and see. And he got it, of course, and came in. He stopped short by the door. "What's the matter?" he cried. "For God's sakes, what are you doing?" I kept on creeping just the same, but I looked at him over my shoulder. "I've got it at last," said I. "In spite of you and Jane, I pulled off most of the paper, so you can't put me back. Now, why should that man have fainted?" But he did, and right across my path by the wall, so that I have creeped over him every time. And that is the end of the yellow wallpaper. What did you guys think? With the duck, like, it's really funny when I'm reading a horror story, because this is technically a horror story. But this is technically a horror story, and having like funky, fresh vibes in the background. I really thought there was gonna be like some more creepy sounds in the background, for sure. Okay, but the reading. Okay, I'm gonna go through the messages real quick. I'm gonna go through. I know what a backroom story was inspired by the yellow wallpaper, like the original backroom story. I mean, honestly, Alexa. Thank God that you managed to figure out how to fix that stuff. The sewing is great. Yeah, I mentioned. I'm gonna talk more about the book. I didn't see a highlighted message, but yes, I can see the messages. So, hi. Yeah, surrealism is definitely it. So the context of the yellow wallpaper is it was written in the 1800s by a woman. I'm gonna say the problem with that, if you didn't realize it, is that women weren't authors at the time. Oftentimes, women were allowed to write. Oh, thank you, Flame. Thank you, Flame, for for the raid. Hi, everyone. Hello. Hello. But women were allowed to write, and at the time, women's medical care was abysmal. And if you caught it in the beginning, she mentions a child, and a baby. She had just had a baby, actually, is what is happening. So she essentially just had a baby, and her husband, John, I saw, like, John being a doctor. He is actually a physician, however, he is actually her husband, is taking care of her after the baby was born. And one of the ways he decides to go about this is by locking her in a room during the day. A room with very gaudy yellow wallpaper and bars on the window. That used to be a nursery and then became a playroom and then a gymnasium. But it has this gaudy yellow wallpaper that eventually the author, as you see, progresses into kind of like a delirium where she sees a woman in the wallpaper be quiet during the day and be very polite during the day, but at night is creeping. And whenever it's dark, she sees this woman creeping around the estate outside, where she's not, like, where this nameless writer, because the writer is completely nameless, is only allowed to go outside when she is supervised. So, essentially what the yellow wallpaper represents is postpartum depression and how women were treated after postpartum depression. Oftentimes, women were treated anytime they had a mental condition, it was hysteria. And it was hysteria being a woman disease. And postpartum depression was not taken seriously. There's a part in this book, actually, and it shows John's pretty true intentions in this dialogue. I need to find it real quick because I think it's on page 8 of this. When she is saying, I feel like literally he is telling her, oh, you look so much better, like physically and stuff, but she's feeling so terrible, like mentally. But she even tries to mention it at one point to him. I'm trying to find it. Where is it? Hold on. Dude is dead. Oh, there he goes. Oh, there it is. So she gets up at the middle of the night, and she's not feeling well because of her mental stuff. I mean, Alexa, you weren't far off. He is a physician. It's just... He does treat her like a patient, because you can see... here's the quote. "Bless her little heart," said he with a big hug. "She shall be as sick as she pleases. But now let's improve the shining hours by going to sleep." And you won't, literally, yeah, and she, yeah, so he basically dehumanizes her pretty quickly by saying, "Bless her little heart," and almost like as if she's not there and being referred to. And then when she goes, "Better in body, perhaps," I began, and stopped short, and she sat up straight and looked at me with such a stern, reproachful look. "My darling," said he, "I beg of you, for your sake and our child's sake, as well as for your own, that you will never for an instant let that idea out, idea let into your mind." Is definitely an idea of him essentially telling her, well, you're better physically, but you're not allowed to be mentally upset, because that's not existent. And then he proceeds to threaten to send her to an even worse physician if she doesn't get better, essentially. And the reason why the woman creeping in the wallpaper is in the heads and stuff like that, that is more of a manifestation of like women in society at the time literally being locked up. The bars on the window are meant to be a representation and also a connection to the woman in the wallpaper, because the woman in the wallpaper is shaking the bars of her enclosure, and then there's literally bars on a window in that room, in which the main writer is literally like locked into during the day and not allowed to leave unless supervised. And then by the end, her creep, you can tell the immediate, shift of her going from, there's a woman in the wallpaper, to, I'm the woman in the wallpaper, and I don't want to leave. You can't force me to leave, because this is what I want to be. It's her essentially kind of, yes, in a way, falling apart because her husband had neglected her and her mental health, but also because of the fact that she had connected herself to the woman in the wallpaper, because a lot of times during that time, women were forced to kind of be like that silent looking thing in the day, while at night they had to figure out how to do things and how to be treated and stuff like that. So it's a very interesting book, and it's definitely meant to be unsettling. It is an unsettling book. That's why I don't call it horror. I call it surrealism, and it's more as a kind of like a symbolic representation of societal pressure, and also almost a historical moment in time in which how we treated mental health, especially postpartum depression, because In reality, she had asked him multiple times, can I please go see my baby? Can I please, like, go out of the house? Can I do these things? And he said no, which all those things would have helped her. What is being discussed right now, there's a short story called The Yellow Wallpaper. It is completely free if you look it up. It's on a PDF. It does have some old school writing, but it's basically, TLDR, a good synopsis on, like, and a good criticism of the time period. What's Dan's streamer user? Dan of All Trades Live. So, I think. Is it Dan of All Trades Live? I don't know. He did some weird... I don't get when they put live at the end. Oh. Wait. Hey, why does he have a lighter? But yeah, so that's The Yellow Wallpaper. Fun fact, I read that in high school. So... But I hope you guys enjoyed that. I actually do think I'm gonna read one more short story. I was gonna read, there's another short story called All Summers in a Day, but that might just be too depressing considering that The Yellow Wallpaper. All Summer in a Day is a very good story. It's just about bullying, pretty much. Why are there ducks? Dan gave me this game, and I guess, wait, hold on. Guys, we're about to witness history! The ducks are flying the aircraft! Where are they going? Oh, did they just go back? Does Dan read often in streams? Not really. Though he does talk at length of English stuff. However, I've heard his content might be changing in some certain stuff, so I don't know. You might have to ask him in the future, in a little bit. But he definitely has. I mean, not brag, but he definitely talks about having a liberal arts degree and a concentration on writing all the time. So. He's a big... Yes, he is a giant... He's a fucking huge-ass nerd. The biggest nerd ever. Absolutely giant nerd. He will go on a rant about why Fahrenheit 451 is a bad book. Yeah, I mean, we could. Fahrenheit 451, yeah. He will rant about how the main character made no sense and how it was written in a way that was definitely, like, good in the aspect that the book means something. Sure, especially about, like, book burning and stuff like that. But the main character sucked, and all the women characters were written just to be used as a plot point, and they all died in some point. It's not a good book. However, he would say a good book is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. And Then There Were None was a very good book that has a lot of good tension moments. Even in writing, anything of Agatha Christie's is actually really good. And he may also talk about philosophy books, potentially. I'm trying to figure out what other short story we should read. Where are the ducks trying to go? I don't know, but this one's on fire. But thank you, Flair, for putting Dan's channel in chat. I hate Discord. Wait. Also, Dan does like the plastic. Literally, dude got me this game because of how much he liked it. Thank you, Flair. Thank you again. You didn't have to. Wow, wait, this is Twitch. Wow, I'm smart, guys. I'm fair. I've had that. I have that same like reaction sometimes. Or you're fired. Okay, what's another short story? Because All Summer in a Day is a good short sci-fi book. However, I don't think anyone wants to hear about bullying after learning about Yellow Wallpaper being about postpartum depression. So, you should read it? I mean, I can. It's not as creepy. It's just sad. Because you feel bad for the character that gets bullied. Here, I'll pull it up. It is also one of my favorites. I also read this in high school and was like, holy crap. This one's a little shorter. Thank God. Because I could not read another forsooth sentence. All Summer in a Day by Raid Bradbury. Ready? Ready. Now. Soon. Do the scientists really know? Will it happen today? Will it? I'm gonna go because I need to play more Elden. Bye, Flair! Have fun in Elden Ring. Do the scientists really know? Will it happen today? Will it? Look! Look! See for yourself! The children pressed to each other like so many roses, so many weeds, intermixed, peering out from for a look at the hidden sun. It rained. It had been raining for 7 years, thousands upon thousands of days, compounded and filled with one end to the other with rain, with the drumming gush of water, with the sweet crystal fall of the showers and concussion of storms so heavy that were tidal waves come over the islands. 1,000 forests had been crushed under the rain and grown up 1,000 times to be crushed again, and this was the way of life was forever on the planet of Venus. And this was the schoolroom of the children of the rocket men and women who had come to the raining world to set up a civilization and live out their lives. It's stopping! It's stopping! Yes! Yes! Margot stood apart from them. From these children who have never remembered a time when there wasn't rain and rain and rain. They were all 9 years old, and if they had been a day, 7 years ago, when the sun came out for an hour and showed its face to the stunned world, they could not recall. Sometimes at night she heard them stir in a remembrance, and she knew they were dreaming and remembering the gold or yellow crayon or a coin large enough to buy the world with. She knew that they thought that they remembered a warmness, like a blushing in the face, in the body, in the arms, in the legs, in the trembling hands. But then they always awoke in the tattling drums and the endless shaking. And down a clear bed, necklaces upon the roof, in the walk, in the gardens, in the forest, and their dreams were gone. All day yesterday they had read in class about the sun, and who popped? Oh. It was him. It was all day yesterday they had read in class about the sun, about how like a lemon it was, and how hot, and they had written small stories or essays or poems about it. I think the sun is a flower that blooms for just 1 hour. That was Margot's poem, read in a quiet voice in the still classroom while the rain was falling outside. Aw, you didn't write that, protested one of the boys. I did, said Margot. I did. William, said the teacher. But that was yesterday. Now the rain was slackening and the children were crushed in the great thick windows. Where's the teacher? She'll be back. She'd better hurry. We'll miss it. They turned on themselves like feverish wheel, all tumbling spokes. Margot stood alone. She was a very frail girl who looked as if she had been lost in the rain for years, and the rain had washed out the blue from her eyes and the red from her mouth and the yellow from her hair. She was an old photograph dusted from the album, whitened away, and as if she spoke out all of her voice would be a ghost. Now she stood separate, staring at the rain and the loud, wet world beyond the huge glass. What are you looking at? Said William. Margot said nothing. Speak when you're spoken to. He gave her a shove, but she did not move. Rather, she let herself be moved only by him and nothing else. They edged away from her. They would not look at her. She felt them go away, and this was because she would play no games with them in the echoing tunnels of the underground city. If they tagged her and ran, she stood blinking at them and did not follow. When the class sang songs about happiness and life and games, her lips barely moved. Only when they sang about the sun and the summer did her lips move as she watched the drenched windows. And then, of course, the biggest crime of it all was that she had come here only 5 years ago from Earth, and she remembered the sun the way that the sun was and the sky was when she was four in Ohio. And they had been on Venus all their lives, and they were only 2 years old when the last sun came out, and had long since forgotten the color and the heat of it and the way it was. Margot remembered. "It's like a penny," she said once, eyes closed. "No, it's not," the children cried. "It's like a fire," she said, "in the stove." "You're lying! You don't remember!" cried the children. But she remembered and stood quietly apart from all of them and watched the pattering windows. And once a month ago, she had refused to shower in the school showers, had clutched her hands to her ears and over her head, screaming the water mustn't touch her head. So after that, dimly she sensed it. She was different, and they knew her difference and kept away. There was talk that her father and mother were taking her back to Earth next year. It seemed vital to her that they do so, though it would mean the loss of thousands of dollars to her family. And so the children hated her for all these reasons of big and little consequence. They hated her pale snow face, her waiting silence, her thinness, and her possible future. "Get away!" The boy gave her another push. "What are you waiting for?" For the first time, she turned and looked at him, and what she was waiting for was in her eyes. "Well, don't wait around," cried the boy savagely. "You won't see nothing." Her lips moved. "Nothing!" he cried. "It was all a joke, wasn't it?" He turned to the other children. "Nothing's happening today, is it?" They all blinked at him, and then, understanding, laughed and shook their heads. Nothing! Oh, but where are we now? Oh, okay. But, Margot whispered, her eyes helpless. "But this is the day the scientists predict." Oh, wow, hold on. I'm losing my page. "But this is the day. The scientists predict. They said they know. The sun. All jokes," said the boy and seized her roughly. "Hey, everyone, let's push her in the closet before the teacher comes." "No," said Margot, falling back. They surged her, caught her, and bore her, protesting, then pleading, and then crying back into a tunnel, a room, a closet, where they slammed and locked the door. They stood looking at the door and saw it tremble from her beating and throwing herself against it. They heard the muffled cries, then smiling, they turned and went out and back down the tunnel just as the teacher arrived. "Ready, children?" She glanced at her watch. "Yes," said everyone. "Are we all here?" "Yes." The rain slacked still more. They crowded to the huge door. The rain stopped. It was if in the midst of... What? "Willie in orbit, our friends heading home." Who's in orbit? I like when I'm getting these, like, notifications and I have no clue what is happening. I like you the most. We'll keep reading with you. It was as if the mist of film concerning an avalanche, a tornado, a hurricane, a volcanic rupture, something had first gone wrong with the sound apparatus, this muffling, and finally cutting off the noise, all of the blasts of repercussions and thunders, and then second, ripped from the film of the projector and inserted in place the beautiful tropical slide, which did not move or tremor. The world ground to a standstill. The silence was so immense and unbelievable that you felt your ears had been stuffed, or you had lost your hearing altogether. The children put their hands to their ears. They stood apart. The door slid back in the smell of the silence, waiting for a world that came into them. The sun came out. It was the color of a flaming bronze, and it was large, and the sky around it was blazing, blue tile color, and the jungles burned with the sunlight as the children released from their spell, rushed out yelling into the springtime. "Now don't go too far," called the teacher after them. "You've only got 2 hours, you know. You wouldn't want to get caught out." But they were running and turning their faces up to the sky and feeling the sun on their cheeks and like a warm iron, and they were taking off their jackets and letting the sun burn their arms. "Oh, it's better than sun lamps, isn't it? Much, much better." They stopped running and stood in a great jungle-covered Venus that grew and never stopped growing, even as you watched it. It was a nest of octopi, a clustering of great arms of flesh-like weed, wavering, flowering in the brief spring. It was the color of rubber and ash, this jungle from many years without sun. It was the color of stones and white cheeses and ink, and it was the color of the moon. The children lay out laughing in the jungle mattress and heard it sigh and squeak under them, resilient and alive. They ran among the trees. They slipped and fell. They pushed each other. They played hide and seek and tag, but most they squinted at the sun until the tears ran down their eyes. They put their hands up to the yellowness and that amazing blueness, and they breathed out the fresh air and listened to the silence which suspended them in the blessed sea of no sound and no motion. They looked at everything and savored everything. Then wildly, like animals escaped from their caves, they ran in shouting circles. They ran for an hour and did not stop running. And then in the midst of their running, one of the girls wailed. Everyone stopped. The girl standing in the open held... I think we found out what it means that by this guy's in orbit. That was jarring, chat. That was incredibly jarring. That was such a jarring change. And in the midst of the running ones, the girl wailed. Everyone stopped. Outer Wilds. I remember crying when I did too. I read it. I remember crying too. The girl standing in the open held out her hand. "Oh, look, she said, trembling. They came slowly to look at the open palm. In the center of it, cupped and huge, was a single raindrop. She began to cry, looking at it. They glanced quietly at the sun. Oh. A few cold drops fell on their noses and their cheeks and their mouths. The sun faded behind a stir of mist. A wind blew cold around them. They turned and started to walk back toward the underground house, and their hands at their sides, their smiles vanishing away. A boom of thunder startled them, and like leaves before a new hurricane, they tumbled upon each other and ran. Lightning struck 10 miles away, 5 miles away, a mile away, half a mile. The sky darkened into a midnight, in a flash. Is this on a hippo? They stood in the doorway of the underground for a moment until it was raining hard. Then... Okay, we're not looking at the duck that's spitting really fast. Donut duck. They stood on the doorway of the underground for a moment until it was raining hard. Then they closed the door and heard the gigantic sound of the rain falling in tons of avalanches everywhere and forever. Will it be 7 more years? Yes, 7. Then one of them gave a little cry. "Margot!" "What? She's still in the closet where we locked her." "Margot." They stood as if someone had driven them, like so many stakes, into the floor. They looked at each other and then they looked away. They glanced out in a world. It was raining now, and raining steadily. They could not meet each other's glances. Their faces were solemn and pale. They looked at their hands and feet and faces down. "Margot," one of the girls said. "Well?" No one moved. "Go on," whispered the girl. They walked slowly down the hall to the sound of the cold rain. They turned through the doorway of the room and the sound of the storm and thundering lightning on their faces. Blue and terrible. They walked over the closet and door slowly and stood by it. Behind the closet door was only silence. They unlocked the door even more slowly and let Margot out. End of the story. I really like All Summer in a Day because I really think it encapsulates how certain times when people feel powerless and helpless, they only go for the weaker person to gain power back. Because Margot represented the outsider. I forgot about that book. I actually forgot about it for a little bit, and then I remembered it, and I went, oh, I need to read it again, and then I almost cried a second time, like 5 years after reading that short story. But I always liked it because Margot is literally, like, she's completely innocent in this case, and she's the only named character other than, like, Teacher and William's the main antagonist. But when it comes to that book, because it is sad, because these children are experiencing, like, the sun, but then they essentially turn on Margot because of her experiences, because of her sadness of having to leave Earth and then being traumatized in a new environment of Venus that rains constantly, and then these children are jealous of the fact that she's gonna be going back to Earth potentially, and despite being literally the outsider, the weaker of all the group, everything, they still turn it. Literally, they had minutes to be proven wrong about it being a joke, quote unquote. And instead of just waiting, they decided to be cruel and shove her into a closet where she can never see the sun. Yeah, I remember the first time I was hoping someone would go back for her before the sun went away, and when that never happened, I started crying. Yeah, she definitely didn't deserve it, but I think I like the last ends of passages because, God, where is it? Because it really highlights how awful these kids were, because they get to have this joy, and then they walk down slowly in the hall, they turn through the doorway in the room, the sound of the storm and thunder, the lightning on their faces, blue and terrible. They have this grief to them because their cruelty ended up being unnecessary in every regard. Instead of choosing a kindness or choosing an understanding, they decided to wield the only power that they had and locked a poor girl in the closet whose life got turned upside down. Yeah, and it's like they learned that day the immense guilt of doing that to a person. And I think it's a good story because not only does it set up, honestly, a really cool landscape. Venus being a jungle that's the color of, like, ash and flesh because of the sun not being there. Holy crap, what an interesting world that you've just set up within 6 pages. And what an interesting layout that there's apparently this culture of rocket men and women who've came to Venus to colonize, and now there's children that have never been to Earth and never have seen the sun. That is an interesting world concept to, like, set up within 6 pages. That's awesome. And then to have this deep emotional connection to, I'm sure everyone has experienced some sort of, like, hardship or felt like they've been the other, so a lot of people relate to Margot. And then seeing the aftermath of the consequence. And the even more, like, terrible part is the fact that they lied to the teacher. The teacher didn't notice that Margot was around, which also kind of notes that Margot was just considered an other to not only the children, but the teachers themselves. Which, how, like, in a society like that, you have to kind of consider, is it okay to bully people based off of seeing the sun? Yeah, right now, how did the teacher not know? Roll call. Honestly, I think it's probably because the story was written, I don't know when I think it was written in, like, the 80s, which means that, in the 80s, wait, hold on, let me, summer in a day when written. Actually, no, it was written in 1954. So, I mean, at the time, they weren't doing roll calls. I think it was the 80s where they had to... Oh, hello. It was the 80s where there was a program going on. It was literally at 11 o'clock at night. And was not born. I was born early 2000s. So I never experienced this. But there was literally an ad that would run at 11 p.m. at night say, hey, are your kids at home? Because parents would not keep an eye on their children. They'd be like, it's 10 p.m. Where are your kids? Oh, is it 10? Yeah, right. Yeah, it is 10. Sorry, my memories. I had like a minor thing going. I had an interesting day for sure. Is all I'm gonna specify. My mom brings that up all the time to me. It is crazy. So like in 1954, a teacher not calling roll call. That was enough context to me that yeah, that makes sense. They were letting kids do whatever they wanted back before child safety became a concern. But I do like stories like that because, and oddly enough, I've been kind of getting back into like short stories like that because of K-pop Demon Hunters. I don't know if you guys have seen K-pop Demon Hunters. I will not spoil K-pop Demon Hunters to anyone in the chat or anyone who is watching this VOD back later. I will not spoil it. However, the concept of adding a deeper layer into a story that is relatable in the aspect of the human condition, I find very fascinating. And books like The Yellow Wallpaper and All Summer in the Day, they contribute to things like that contribute to things in the human condition. Things like jealousy, things like cruelty that humans sometimes exhibit when they feel powerless. I literally had a discussion the other day where sometimes people, like, if you're in a friend group and you feel powerless, you might try to bully someone else in that friend group to make them feel weaker to gain some power. Because you might feel powerless in your life. It is, like, while humans should not treat each other cruelly or terribly, in my personal belief, everyone should treat each other with empathy. There is still a human condition and psychology to that. And short stories like that, and things like K-pop Demon Hunters, K-pop Demon Hunters show very emotions that aren't often brought up or are often more shown in literal senses that don't feel genuine because they are so literal. Because no human experiences happiness in a literal way, kind of like how Disney writes their stories nowadays. I go out and like at 1 a.m. and anytime she finds out, she's like, I need to know where you are and don't know about the ad that says 10 p.m. where your kid's at. Yeah. It's 10 p.m. Where are your children? That was a crazy ad. That was such a crazy ad. But yeah, I always like short book stories like that kind of dive deep into the psychological aspects of humans or people. As much of a demon I am, people. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the short stories. I know it was definitely not. It was a different pacing. Some of the book, like, I know Flair was like weirded out by Yellow Wallpaper. I honestly thought about reading I Have No Mouth, but I'm a Screen. I will not read that. I will not read that because giant trigger warning. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream is literally one of the most disturbing horror pieces out there. I am laying that so thickly because it genuinely just is incredibly disturbing, incredibly violent, incredibly, like, there's a lot of, like, think about any, like, trigger warning, you will find it there, essentially. Not all of it, but there's a lot of torture and stuff, and it obviously I was not going to read that on stream. Not a short story, but have you read Ethan Frome? I have not read Ethan Frome. I'm gonna put that on my list though. House of Leaves stream would go crazy. If I read House of Leaves on stream, that would be insane. Yeah, myhouse.wad would be a better option. Ethan Thrum. I love this little dude. A tragic love story set in fictional New England. Ooh, I like this already. I like how the first YouTube video is the book I hated for 40 years. Now, I also think, like, everyone, like, yeah. I think another, like, really cool thing to talk about would be H.P. Lovecraft. Because H.P. Lovecraft, as the reason why his horror was so good was because he was scared of everything. My favorite is the fact that he discovered what an air conditioner was and then proceeded to write, a short story about it. Actually, how short of a story is it? How much time? I don't think it's that short of a story. Air conditioner, H.P. Lovecraft. Yeah, it's called Cool Air. Cool Air by H.P. Lovecraft. Oh, it's pretty decent. It's pretty sizable. But, yeah, he was scared of everything. And this included air conditioning units. And my other favorite is, the colors from outer space. That one was written because someone essentially told him that there's a light spectrum and there's some light that we can't see, and he freaked out about it. Like, dude was fighting everyone, and he essentially was scared of everything but his estate. He was also an awful human being. His cat was not named a good name. I will say that. But the good news is H.P. Lovecraft actually never actually got to see any of that money in his lifetime. He died. And when he died, and when the book started picking up popularity, it was his wife and his family who got the money. So it was not H.P. Lovecraft. So despite him not being the best person ever, in fact, like, a pretty bigoted person, he still at least had his family pretty well off for the rest of their lives. Thank God. Because he abandoned his wife, I think, in New York City. Like, dude was on, like, he was fighting whatever demons. Ah, man. Oh, hello. Okay, let's go. Before I end our stream, I would like to look through all these ducks. So we have one with a light. You reading has made me decide to finally read this book I got last weekend. Aw, awesome! I'm glad. I still need to finish Don, and I still need to read I need to finish Gideon the Ninth. Gideon the Ninth is my next book I need to finish. Okay, then we have Sewing Duck. And then we have Number 1 Duck. And then we have the guys in Space Duck. All of them. Then this guy who's been, I think, in hell. Yeah, Sewing Duck. Hold on. We'll go back to Sewing Duck. There's not that many ducks. Sewing Duck. See? It's a stitch pattern. I always love the ducks because they have such cute little designs. This is definitely a bird, like, when the game turned number 1. Like, turned 1. And then these guys. I'm still convinced. We actually haven't checked this place in particular out. What is going on here? I think because it is like it's like a portal. There's this thing here. Okay. Hello? Can I not mess with the machine? That might be... John. Oh, wait, I think I have... Where's that? Because there's that place that had the user. It's this robot, right? Oh, when did Glasses Duck got here? Okay, hold on. We're gonna... John. Okay, John was not the right call, unless I have to throw you out first. Can I okay, I guess I'm not gonna be able to reset it. Okay, and then Teal Duck. This guy that freaked me out at one point. Strawberry Duck. Or definitely... I like how these guys keep getting in these chairs randomly. Panda Duck. Pink Duck. Gold Duck. Donut Duck. Astronaut. Watermelon. Daisies. Another celebration. Polka dots. Yeah. Marble that's just been here. Alien duck. And then normal duck. And then dirt duck. Then silly duck. Thank you for that praise and thank you for the head pats. I don't think he's supposed to do that. Wait, hold on a second. There you go. Feather Duck, who's having a blast here. This is actually really fun. I think this is one of the better maps, for sure, because there's just a lot of things going on. I think this map, for sure, is for people that want to kind of watch the ducks do more interesting things. Because there's just a lot of pockets and, like, interesting areas to find stuff, and they come out of... I'm pretty sure all the ducks come out of this. But I'm interested to figure out that situation. Wait, if we release him... Wait, hold on. God. The controls on this game is still a little buggy. Eat you. What happens if we do that? Yeah! And they launch it, I think, in the game, right? But I also like there is, like, some sitting areas, too. So if you did, like, want to just straight up chill, you could just sit here. Yeah. It's a debate. Well then, chat, I think that's gonna be it for me. Is this a watching duck game? Yes, actually, this game is literally just sitting and watching ducks. This game is just... You don't do anything with the ducks. You just sit, and you get new ducks. You have a duck meter in the corner. You see it's 26 minutes. It'll take 26 minutes. You get a new duck, but sometimes, if you click the ducks, they might do something interesting. Or things like that happen. So there's like different unique things going on with the ducks. So it's not just like sitting and watching just random plastic ducks. There's actually some cute things that you can... Like clicking this guy apparently makes him fly. And then clicking on him again makes him not fly. I see what... I'm not a nerd. I'm not the nerd. Dan got me this game. Dan's the nerd. He's the giant nerd that did this. Oh god. But it is quite cute. Yeah, Dan is the big nerd, but dude is the bird guy, so I get why he's obsessed with this game. He even named. You want to know? Okay, you want to know what this bastard named me? Like which duck Dan named after me? You want to know which one? You want to know, chat? You know what this one? He named this duck Arky on his game. Bastard. Okay, chat. I believe that's it for me. I hope you guys have a good rest of your evening, morning, night, and be kind to each other. Good. Bye.